Mass Effect 1 originally released on November the 16th, 2007, and here we are in 2021 with it being remastered and re-released as a part of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, along with the rest of the now acclaimed trilogy. Believe it or not, for the past near 14 years, I have been on what really was a media blackout when it came to the Mass Effect franchise. Outside of seeing male Commander Shepard's face on memes over the years, knowing that the ridiculously talented Jennifer Hale voiced Fem Shep, and knowing your ship was called the Normandy, I genuinely knew nothing. It wasn't always on my radar, but once I became more aware of it, I assumed I would always find my way to the series, so at that point I went out of my way to avoid all Mass Effect related content. From trailers to playthroughs to reviews, all of it. I did that so that when I did finally have my own experience, it really was my experience. I could allow myself to become fully immersed and be able to go wherever Mass Effect wanted to take me. Having now rolled credits on the first game, keeping that mystery alive may have been the single best decision I've made in my gaming history. My name is Halen, and this is my review of Mass Effect 1. I understood going into this that I was not playing a full remake of Mass Effect 1, rather just a remaster to visually enhance the game and boost performance. So beneath the surface, I understood that I was still playing something made in 2007, and I was okay with that. I was fully aware that some mechanics and control schemes may feel dated, but as long as everything ran smooth and as intended, I could easily look past that and adapt. I purchased the Legendary Edition on Xbox Series X, and I'm happy to report that my time with the first game was nearly flawless. There are two options it gives you when it comes to performance settings on Series X: favorite quality and favorite performance. Favorite quality allows you to play at 4K 60 FPS, while favorite performance allows you to play at 1440p but with an FPS of up to 120. I don't currently have a monitor capable of running 120 FPS, so I did opt for the quality option. And I had zero issues when it came to display and frame rate. There were no noticeable frame dips anywhere in the game, and the game shined up incredibly nice visually, even more noticeably with the environments, which were beautiful. There were a few visual bugs that I experienced in my journey, like Commander Shepard's hands being intertwined, but they were minor, and by 2021 standards, I was very pleased with my experience. It really did all feel responsive and crisp. Mako controls aside, it didn't feel like I was playing a game made in 2007. When you were dealing with a story on a galactic scale, building a game's world to match that scale is a huge task. Mass Effect 1 knocks that completely out of the park. It was something that was incredibly apparent very early on in the game. Even within the first few hours that I spent roaming the Citadel, I spoke to everybody that I could. I took in everything the game was sending my way, and I was immediately struck by how deep the lore went. Every character and every race had a story and a reason for being there. Everything made that much deeper by the Codex, which was constantly being updated throughout the game, giving you reminders and explanations on the history and logic of everything. There is so much content within the Codex itself that there are still things I had not discovered, and even the things that I hadn't totally had time to let sink in. It was to the point to where that before I even looked at the galaxy map for the very first time, I could visualize the scope of everything. That's world building. All that depth allowed you to feel the weight of your decisions you made throughout the game, and they added to the massive stakes of the story. The biggest compliment I can give the world building is that you and your responsibilities did not feel disconnected from the rest of the galaxy. Realistically, there are a ton of things that must collaborate and mesh for a game's full vision and potential to be realized. But at the base of all of that, especially in a game in the style of Mass Effect, is the writing. None of this is possible without the creation and execution of the story itself. What BioWare and the team behind Mass Effect have done here is special. Not only is the evolution and flow of the main story done tremendously, but it's also everything around it. There isn't an aspect or portion of this game you can look at as a point of weakness when it comes to the writing. The interactions between all the characters, whether part of the main cast or those with a smaller role, all feel natural and impactful. Even touching back on the Codex for a second, that could have easily been this extra side thing with baseline information, but it's actually incredibly informative and deep. Even the summaries you can read on each destination prior to traveling are well written. There's just so much to take in everywhere, but it's all worth your time. And speaking on the voices behind these characters, once again going in, I only knew of Jennifer Hale, but the rest of the cast was a pleasant surprise too. The writing is helped by strong performances from Jennifer Hale, to Keith David, to Fred Tatasciore, to Stephen Barr, among others, including even Seth Green, whose voice I immediately recognized and was totally caught off guard by, as I had no memory of him being involved in this. But that writing, paired with that voice work, were two huge factors in making the entire Mass Effect experience as strong as it is. Two things at the heart of Mass Effect are exploration and discovery. Earlier I mentioned the environments being beautiful, but they are also varied and unique, some of which you will not get to see unless you actively seek them out yourself. There are many important decisions you make throughout the game, but something else that's entirely up to the player is how you choose to approach what's next. You can absolutely run straight through the main quest line and only speak to those who you deem necessary, but there's just so much there to explore if you take the time to do so. One example would be that there's always extra dialogue options and conversations. These are optional, but they provide context and information you cannot get elsewhere. That goes for every character you can interact with throughout the game, even down to the vendors. Another noteworthy example would be the Uncharted World system. That system gives you a legitimate sense of pioneering the galaxy. Not to mention these worlds allow you to not only find more weapons and resources, but to stumble onto new assignments that gives you even more reason to dig even deeper. One of the main goals in anything in entertainment is being able to have the audience walk away saying, "I want more." I fail to see how you can wrap up Mass Effect 1 and feel any different. Sometimes a sequel or any sort of follow-up can feel forced or thrown together out of a desire to make money. This is not one of those cases. There are so many things Mass Effect does well when it comes to setting the stage for what comes after. It's narratively consistent from the beginning that this galaxy has many unanswered questions, and it has looming threats far beyond Saren. Through the incredible world building, we were able to learn and know of a lot, but not everything, not even close. The plot progresses in such a way that you can feel triumphant, but also anxious as you already have an idea of the inevitable road ahead. That road, though, is one you want to travel down, because by that point, the game's already had its hooks in you a long time ago. There are so many games on my backlog right now, and so many that are upcoming that I really want to play, but none more at this moment than Mass Effect 2. I need to continue my Shepard story. I want to reunite with my crew and be taken on another wonderful roller coaster into the unknown. That's how you know an initial game has done its job. It's laid the foundation for everything that follows. Remember how I said that I avoided any and all information relating to Mass Effect? This would probably count as a glaring downside to doing that. I did zero research prior to starting my journey, so I was not aware that Mass Effect 1 had no post-game state. I did go out of my way to complete some assignments and traverse some of the Uncharted worlds during my playthrough, but I wasn't able to get to all of them. I intended to, but it just didn't happen. You see, during the late game, I got so sucked into the story being told in front of me that I just had to see what happened next. I began to play with the urgency that mimicked the characters. Then, before you knew it, the credits rolled. I was beamed back to the main menu and I slowly realized there was no going back. The massive misstep I took was getting very lackadaisical with my save files. I began overwriting the same one, and I repeated this process until the last save state that I had was in the middle of the last mission when it was too late to turn back. Hey, I learned my lesson. But with that being said, I'm sure down the line there will be another run of Mass Effect 1, and I'll get to turn over some of these stones that I left unturned. In the end, it is strange, because of course I wish I had jumped in sooner. But I'm also glad that I waited until I was in a place where I could fully take the time to appreciate all that Mass Effect 1 had to offer me. I'm going to carry my time with this game with me for a while. It's an example of a game that may show its age in some smaller areas, but is ultimately timeless due to the sheer level of narrative excellence on display. Craziest thing? I've had people in my circle whom I trust tell me that Mass Effect 2 takes what Mass Effect 1 establishes and somehow pushes it to a higher level. If that's true, I think I'm in for an unforgettable experience. That will do it for my review of the first Mass Effect and my very first review I've ever done. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed your stay at Halen's Haven. Now if you'll excuse me, I gotta go save the galaxy.